Welcome in, guys. Today, we are here to talk about Jujutsu Kaisen Chapter 245. This right here is my first attempt at actually breaking down and having a discussion about a JJK chapter. So if I jumble any facts, if I say something that is wrong, please let me know down below and I will fix it by the next JJK video. Also, a word of forewarning, but I am not as talented as the other Jujutsu Kaisen content creators out there, so my editing is going to be very subpar and or minimal, but hopefully it gets honed along the way, and you guys are here for the journey. So yeah, with that being said, my name is Sai, and let's hop into the chapter. So to kick things off, we start off with Hikari versus Urame, which is a fight we all knew was happening in the background, but I'm gonna say it right here, I don't think a lot of people saw this fight coming this week, but what a pleasant surprise it is, because it's pretty damn good. So we start off with Urame using Frost Calm, freezing the right side of Hikari's body, most notably his right arm. Urame then hits us with one of those Gaara Sand Coffin abilities and just shatters Hikari's right arm. But here's the thing, it straight up doesn't matter. Hikari, after hitting jackpots, just has crazy reverse curse technique and he's able to regenerate at the blink of an eye. It's so shocking, in fact, that Urame is caught off guard by this. In their head, they were like, oh, Owarida, it's over. And then next thing you know, Hikari grabs her hair and slings her across the city. And I just gotta say, but I love the face of shock that Urame puts on display this week. Mainly because Urame is a really calm, collected, almost monotone character in everyday circumstances that don't involve Sukuna. So seeing them actually shocked here is pretty refreshing. And not to mention, they back up why they're shocked too, because they're like, yo, Hikari's reverse curse technique, his regeneration capabilities are above Sukuna and even Gojo. With that being said, I'm now wondering, is there a cap to this? Of course, Hikari, when he hits the jackpot, he has like infinite cursed energy and he can just regenerate as many times as possible. But now I'm just wondering, if you cut this man in half, do legs sprout from his torso? If you cut Hikari into a million little pieces, do they just come back together and form Hikari? Does a little piece just grow a whole body? I have no clue. But regardless, Hikari is more or less unkillable right now. So a couple of seconds ago, I said that Hikari has hit his jackpot, and that's why he is regenerating at these speeds. That is just an assumption, and the reason I took that leap and said that is because we know that some time has passed from the chapter where Hikari uses domain expansion and chapter 245. So that, coupled by the fact that Hikari doesn't exactly know reverse curse technique, and it's just a byproduct of his jackpot hitting ability, I'm gonna take a guess and say that he hit it, especially when you take into consideration just how fast he regenerated. And hey, the regeneration doesn't stop there either, because when they hit the ground, right, after Urame gets slung around like a hot potato, Hikari goes in for a follow-up attack, but what happens is Urame freezes his leg. But no big deal, right? He lost an arm, he grew it back, so he ends up forsaking his leg and just kicking her with a brand new bare foot. And I just gotta say, but I feel a little bit bad for Urame, because Hikari isn't exactly your everyday fighter. He's not fighting using martial arts. This man is going at you with the whole kitchen. You never know what he's gonna throw at you next, especially when he can just regenerate body parts instantaneously, right? It's kind of like fighting a damn zombie. And hey, after Urame gets kicked by Hikari, they even have this come to Jesus moment where they're like, yo, this guy's not even human, right? Average sorcerers tend to not like to break things, but Hikari, he just has no limits. This guy's not afraid of loneliness. He doesn't have any fears in him. This guy is not human. Hikari, while listening to Urame's spiel, just looks for his shoe in the rubble, puts it on, and he's like, yeah, you know what? Yuta said something kind of similar to this. Based off of how perturbed Urame is by Hikari, I'm gonna say that this is a perfect matchup for the JJK sorcerers. And we have to remember that all of these matchups, all these characters fighting right now, they planned this out beforehand. They wanted Hikari to step in and domain expansion Urame and get them away from Sukuna, right? They picked Hikari for this job. So now that Urame has acknowledged Hikari as a monster, it's their turn to bring out the whole ocean. They're getting serious now. Urame starts bursting the pipes from underground, and we have water spewing all over the arena. At the beginning of this chapter, when they used Frost Calm, it looks like they were trying to aim at Hikari's whole body, but Hikari moved out of the way, right? He kind of like, jolted a little bit and only hit his right side. this time around, if Hikari is wet, you know, like, you don't exactly have to hit him. You could just hit the ground. You can hit like his foot, and then boom, it's just gonna spread like a virus. You know, this ice is gonna get really crazy pretty dang soon. But here's the thing, you know, it goes back to what we were asking earlier. Like, if you smash Hikari to 1,000 little pieces when he's unkillable, what happens? You know, like, who's gonna come out of this? I don't know. But here's the thing. Even though Hikari had a pretty good showing this chapter, I don't want to count Urame out just yet, because I saw a lot of people just saying like, Urame is going to get stomped, you know, Hikari's just going to WWW. And I agree. At the end of the day, I feel like the winner is going to be Hikari. But I don't think it's going to be that easy. I don't know. I just got a bad feeling about this, right? Whenever I see water filling the arena, I'm like, yo, like, this is bad. This is bad. So now, switching gears over, we cut back to the Higuruma, Yuji, and Sukuna fight. We're now in court. Court's in session. We go through the first 2 pages of this transition with Higuruma explaining all of the ways Sukuna might talk his way out of this domain expansion. Maybe he'll say that, you know, he had a headache that day. Maybe he wasn't in the right mind. Maybe it was an accident, right? Higuruma's playing all these scenarios out. He's like Doctor Strange looking for that one thread of victory. But Sukuna makes it easy for everyone. He says, yo, this is taking too damn long. Get me out of here, brother. And that is what Judge Man does. They said, hey, if you're not going to defend yourself, you're guilty, you got the death penalty, and you're slapped with a confiscation. And correct me if I'm wrong, and it's kind of silly I say that because I feel like, you know, after I'm done recording this, I'll go check myself. But I think Judge Man this chapter looks different from the Judge Man we saw back during the Yuji fight. Yuji also got hit with the death penalty and confiscation, but Judge Man didn't, like, you know, rip their eye open and break the threading. So I wonder if Higuruma's domain expansion is evolving. You know, the Shikigami is getting stronger, or maybe they're just annoyed with Sukuna's attitude. I have no clue here, but I feel like as far as Higuruma goes, there's a lot of talk in the community right now about whether or not he's a fraud or he fumbled. And, you know, don't call me a Higuruma defender, right? Don't call me up to the stand. But I gotta say, I don't think this is Higuruma's fault. You know, I'm just gonna skip ahead. I'm gonna rip off the band-aid, but confiscation does not work on Sukuna. Going into this fight, they thought that they could confiscate Malevolent Shrine, but what happened is that they actually confiscated his cursed tool instead. I understand the notion that Higuruma should have known that this would have happened, that they should have planned for this to some extent. But here's the thing, Higuruma isn't a formal sorcerer. He didn't really have any real training up until this point, and even through his fight with Yuji, when he applied confiscation to him, he was even shocked a little bit when instead of confiscating his curse technique, it just confiscated Yuji's cursed energy in general, because he didn't have a curse technique. He's still learning about his domain expansion, so I want to give him a pass for not exactly knowing that the tool will be confiscated and not actually Malevolent Shrine. Of course, one thing that does oppose this idea of him not knowing his domain expansion that well could be the fact that he has fought multiple people throughout this culling game before he even met Yuji, and we can assume that he used his domain expansion on all of his opponents. But here's the thing, how many people in the verse of JJK actually use cursed tools regularly? And I know that's more or less a loaded question because I think there's at least 10 or 12 people, but in the culling games, right, like how many people did Higuruma fight that actually had a cursed tool and got applied with confiscation? I don't think there was anyone actually. So him not knowing this just makes a lot of sense. And even going beyond that, we have to imagine that Sukuna must have been plotting how to bypass confiscation or even the death penalty when he first saw this being used against Yuji when the culling games first started, right? Sukuna was, you know, inside Yuji's body, like twiddling his fingers. I'm sure he must have been like, oh, I should just bring a cursed tool with me. He won't see this coming whatsoever. And you can't tell me that Sukuna hasn't at least been thinking about this domain expansion, because throughout this chapter, he was like, yo, let me see that executioner sword, right? Like, he wants to see what the death penalty is like. And now I'm kind of curious to see what Sukuna wants to do with the executioner sword. Does he either want to test his own limits by being slashed by it, or does he want to steal the executioner sword from Higuruma? Personally, I can see it going either way. I feel like if Sukuna were to survive being slashed by the Executioner's blade, that would look really bad for Higuruma, especially since it's supposed to be a sure kill technique. But at the same time, that feels like something Sukuna would do, right? Like, hey, give it your best shot, try to slash me, see if it actually does anything. You know, Sukuna just wants to feel alive, so I wouldn't be surprised if he wants to be cut to some extent. But also, him stealing the Executioner's sword also falls in line with Sukuna, because he loves collecting high-grade cursed tools. It's not exactly like his daytime hobby, but he just lost. He just got his cursed tool from Yorozu confiscated, so why not replace it with Higuruma's gavel? Which I guess does bring up another question, like, if Higuruma dies, does the gavel still exist, or what happens to it exactly? Who knows? We'll figure that out later. A really goofy theory that I've been thinking of recently is that maybe Higuruma will reactivate his domain expansion, and this time around, instead of trying to find Sukuna guilty or giving him the death penalty, instead we have a custody battle over Megumi's body. I'm not too sure how that would work or actually pan out, but hey, if that is successful, not only would that confiscate the 10 Shadows technique from Sukuna, but it might even get rid of Sukuna altogether since he is currently inside Megumi's body. So before the boys get slapped with the cold water, that confiscation didn't work. We have Choso, Ino, and Kusakabe jumping into the battlefield, right? Everything looks ripe for the picking. Sukuna's about to die. It's time to hop in. And here's the thing. When these guys hopped in, I'm not gonna lie, I was kind of chuckling to myself. I was like, okay, Kusakabe, Ino, Choso, great characters, strong characters. But against Sukuna, like, what are they gonna do? But and then I remembered, somebody splashed me with the cold water, and I was like, wait, the boys have been plotting on the sideline, right? Like, we last saw them in the flashback in a university lecture hall talking about strategies. So surely Ino, Kusakabe, and Choso have something planned. Of course, though, their plan probably revolved around Sukuna's malevolent shrine being confiscated, but they had a plan no less. So I want to see what these guys are all about. Kusakabe and what he brings to the table is simple domain, right? Maybe if Sukuna uses his domain expansion, he brings out the shrine, Kusakabe, I guess, could block it off or fend it off for a brief moment. So that would be pretty dang big, right? Any second that you live against Sukuna is an absolute blessing. So yeah, Kusakabe, yeah, he could show off a little bit here. As far as Ino goes, I think Ino, people are gonna laugh at this one. Come next week, I think people are gonna laugh at me when I say this, but I think Ino, out of the three, has the most potential of doing something big. And the reason I say this is because we haven't seen all of his auspicious beasts yet, right? When he was fighting Granny on the rooftop, he didn't have a chance to bring them all out. And when he was about to, Toji beat the hell out of him, right? Like, he couldn't really do anything. He got blitzed. So maybe this time around, he can bring them out, and maybe they will be a little bit impactful. Another reason why I want to hype up Ino is because we still don't know about the conversation that he had with Gojo in Yeti about Nanami. So after reading this chapter, I was trying to come up with possibilities or conclusions that could tie back to the future chapters, right? How does that conversation tie into this fight? And the one thing I could come up with is that maybe he was going to tell them that because he wanted Nanami's approval the entirety of the series, that Ino was holding his own powers back. Maybe he wanted to do things the right way, as he would say, and he didn't want to bring out all of his beasts. Maybe he has a special seance beast that he doesn't want to bring out just yet. So maybe now that Nanami is gone, he's like, F that, right? Whatever Nanami wanted, whatever approval I wanted, it went out the door when Nanami went out the door. Maybe that's what it is, and maybe, come next chapter or the chapter after that, he uses some forbidden curse technique, or maybe he even uses his seance technique and seances Gojo. I have no clue, right? His seance technique is very different from Granny, but either way, I feel like Ino just straight up has a lot of potential here in this fight. So now, time to talk about what Choso could bring to the table. I think Choso is, in my opinion, he's kind of a wild card too, right? I mean, Kusakabe, they're all wild cards here. But Choso is different than both of them, right? Kusakabe is more utility. Ino, I'd also put him in the utility role. But Choso is a straight brawler. And not just that, but he tends to get stronger and or learn more techniques as he fights. We saw that during the Kenjaku fight, in the Yuji fight. Like, Choso just, he learns. He's kind of like a sponge, right? So that, coupled with the fact that these boys have been planning this matchup for a while now, I wouldn't be surprised if Choso has some new techniques in his bag. And here's the thing, like, how could he grow, right? Well, we know that Yuji was being trained by Kamo, so there could be something there, right? You know, he was trying to train Yuji, but Yuji was like, yo, this guy's a bad teacher. So we do know that he was training on the side. He probably has some new abilities. And since he was training with Yuji, maybe they even have some tag team abilities, right? They're brothers. You know, maybe something happens here. Oh yeah, last thing I didn't mention, but yeah, Higuruma and Kutsukage get just absolutely slashed left and right by Sukuna by the end of this chapter. And I don't think they're dead. I've seen some people saying that these are the same space distorting cuts that they use against Kashimo and Gojo. I don't think that's the case. They just look, they look alike, right? It's hard to, you know, gauge what this attack actually looks like in person, but I'm assuming they're a little bit different. These look like little paper cuts compared to the giant shredders that Sukuna used against the other two boys. So yeah, I'm gonna take a guess and say they're still alive. And not to mention, since Sukuna is interested in the Executioner's Blade, it would be very weird if he just instantly killed Higuruma and just straight up does not see what this blade can actually do, right? That's like me saying, oh, I can't wait till Call of Duty gets released. Call of Duty comes out and I just don't play it. That's essentially what that would be like if Higuruma was actually dead. But that being said, I don't think Higuruma's safe. All I'm saying is that he's not dead right now, but I wouldn't be surprised if he dies pretty dang soon, right? Because in this chapter, you know, Gege kind of brought in the flashback potential, right? Higuruma in his head, he had somebody telling him, hey, are you ready to die? So it sounded like we're starting a Higuruma flashback pretty dang soon. And we all know what a flashback means in JJK. Flashbacks roll, heads roll. It's like a match made in heaven. So yeah, those are my thoughts on the chapter. Hopefully you guys enjoyed me rambling on for, I think, like 10-ish minutes. Like I said, there's very little editing in this week's video. Come next week, I'll add a little bit more, but just don't expect anything super crazy, right? This isn't exactly a high production value video, right? But yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed me rambling. I really appreciate you guys for being here. If you have any recommendation for these videos, or like I said, if I fumbled any facts, let me know down below, and I'll be sure to, I guess, brush up more on JJK knowledge and lore. But yeah, my name is Sai, and I'll catch you guys later.